This is Mr. Richard, and today I'm going to tell you why being single makes more sense than being in a relationship. Yeah, you heard that right. Not for everyone. But for a lot of guys, especially guys over 40, staying single is actually the smarter choice. And before you think I'm just bitter or angry, hold on. I'm talking about pure math here. When you actually sit down and look at what you give versus what you get, the numbers don't add up anymore. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every relationship costs you something. Your time, your energy, your freedom. That's just how it works. But here's the thing. Those costs used to be worth it. You gave up some stuff, sure, but you got enough back that it balanced out. Now, the deal's gotten worse, way worse. You're giving more and getting less. And guys are starting to notice. I need to tell you why I'm even making this video, because I spent 12 years in a marriage where I never once asked myself a simple question. Am I actually happier in this relationship than I'd be on my own? I just assumed the answer was yes. Everyone assumes that. Being with someone is better than being alone. That's what we're told our whole lives. So I never checked. I never did the actual math. Then I got divorced, and for the first time in over a decade, I lived alone. Just me, my place, my schedule, my decisions. And you know what I realized? I was happier. Not a little bit happier, a lot happier. Like, shockingly happy. And that messed with my head because it wasn't supposed to work that way. But I was supposed to be lonely and miserable, but I wasn't. I was calmer, I had more energy, I got more done. My life just worked better. So I started actually tracking it. What was my life like when I was married versus what's my life like now? And when I looked at the real numbers, the real day-to-day costs, it wasn't even close. Being single was better, by a huge margin. And that's when I started talking to other guys, hundreds of them. Divorced guys, single guys, guys still in relationships, but barely hanging on. And almost all of them, when they actually did this math, came to the same conclusion. The relationship costs way more than it gives back. Now, if you're expecting me to say some romantic stuff about how love isn't about math, you're watching the wrong video. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to show you the truth. And the truth is, you can measure this stuff. You can look at what you put in and what you get out. And when you do that, honestly, modern relationships are a bad deal for most men. Stay with me, because today I'm walking you through the exact moment guys realize their life is better alone than with someone, and why they choose to keep it that way. Let's start with what I mean when I say relationship cost. I'm talking about everything you give up or spend to keep a relationship going. Not just money though, that's part of it. I'm talking about all of it, the full price. There's the emotional stuff, the energy you spend managing her feelings, keeping her calm when she's upset, watching what you say so you don't set her off, listening to her vent about her day, her friends, her family, her coworkers, reassuring her when she's insecure, validating her when she needs to feel understood. All that emotional work that you do for her that drains you. There's the mental load. Remembering the stuff she cares about, her friends' names, important dates, things she mentioned she wanted, planning around her schedule, thinking about how she'll react before you do anything, all that brain space that gets used up just managing the relationship instead of doing something useful. There's the talking. Hours and hours of conversations that don't go anywhere. Talking about feelings, talking about the relationship, talking about nothing just because she needs to talk. Processing her emotions out loud while you sit there and listen. Discussions that solve nothing but make her feel heard. There's the fights, the arguments where you're somehow always wrong, even when you're right. Where logic doesn't matter and her feelings decide what's true. Where you end up apologizing for stuff that isn't your fault just to make it stop. Walking on eggshells because you never know what's going to start a fight. There's the freedom you lose. You can't just decide stuff anymore. You have to check with her first. You can't spend your money how you want. You can't use your time how you want. You can't hang out with whoever you want. Everything gets filtered through what she thinks about it. There's the stuff you don't do because the relationship won't let you. Career moves that would mean relocating. Business ideas that would take too much time. Hobbies she doesn't like. Friends she doesn't approve of. All the things you do if you were on your own but can't, because you're not. These aren't one-time things. This is every week, every month, every year. And it adds up. Over time, the total cost is massive. But most guys never actually add it up. They just pay it because that's what you're supposed to do. Nobody ever told them to check if they're getting their money's worth. Here's the thing. That cost used to make sense because what you got back was worth it. And let me show you what relationships used to give men that actually justified the price. Sex. Regular, consistent sex. You didn't have to chase it. You didn't have to convince her. It was just part of the deal. You're together, you have sex, That's how it works. And that mattered because getting sex outside a relationship was hard and time-consuming and socially messy. A clean house and food. She handled the domestic stuff, cooking, cleaning, organizing, and to managing the household. That freed you up to focus on earning money and other things while knowing the home front was taken care of. Social respect. Being married meant something. It gave you status. Single guys were looked at weird. Married guys were stable, responsible, respectable members of society, kids, and family. You got to have children and pass on your name. Build a legacy. That biological drive to reproduce got satisfied through the partnership, actual support. Real partnership where she cared about your well-being, supported your goals, had your back when life got hard, gave you emotional refuge when you needed it. The costs were real, but the benefits were real too. Solid, reliable, worth it. The math worked. You paid the price and got clear, consistent returns that justified paying it, but that deal doesn't exist anymore. Let me show you what modern relationships actually give you when you look honestly at it. Sex, except it's not consistent anymore. It depends on her mood, her stress level, whether she's happy with you that week, whether she feels like it, and it gets used as a weapon. Good behavior gets rewarded. Bad behavior gets punished. The frequency drops over time no matter what you do. And here's the kicker. You might actually get less sex in a relationship than you would single, and with more rules about how and when domestic labor. But you're expected to split it 50-50 now. Doesn't matter if you make more money. She works, so you cook. She's tired, so you clean. She's stressed, so you handle the house stuff. The domestic work you get from her is canceled out by the domestic work you do for her. Net result? 0. Or negative if you're doing more than half. Social respect? Gone. Being married doesn't give you status anymore. Nobody cares. Single guys aren't suspicious now. If anything, married guys sometimes get pitied. Poor guy, stuck, trapped. The social benefit disappeared. Kids, but with massive risk. If things go bad, you lose them. Custody defaults to mom. You might see your kids every other weekend while still paying for them. The benefit comes with catastrophic downside. Emotional support, almost none. You're supposed to handle your own emotions without burdening her. She expects you to support her emotionally, but the reverse, rare. You give emotional labor, you don't receive it. So what are you actually getting? Sex that's inconsistent and declining. Domestic help that's neutral at best. No social status, kids with huge risk. One-way emotional labor. Meanwhile, what you're paying has exploded. The emotional demands are higher. The mental load is bigger. The freedom restrictions are tighter. The costs keep growing. You're paying way more for way less, operating at a loss, and expected to pretend it's fine. Let me break down the actual calculation guys over 40 are doing, because once you've lived both ways, partnered and single, you can compare them for real. Partnered life. What you get, inconsistent sex, maybe 2 or 3 times a month if you're lucky. Neutral domestic help because you split everything. Almost no emotional support. What it cost. Constant emotional labor managing her moods and feelings. Mental space taken up by relationship management. 10 to 15 hours every week on relationship maintenance. Another 5 to 10 hours every week managing drama and conflict. Complete loss of control over money. Time. Decisions. Can't pursue risky career moves or ventures. Added up. You get inconsistent intimacy minus 20 plus hours every week of obligation, minus total control over your life, minus opportunity to do what you want. That's clearly negative. Single life. What you get? Complete control over everything. No emotional labor requirements, no conflict, no drama. Total freedom to pursue whatever you want. Mental clarity and peace. What it costs. You handle your own cleaning and cooking, maybe 5 hours a week. You pursue intimacy when you want it. Occasional dating, maybe 3 to 5 hours a month if you're interested. Add it up. You get autonomy plus peace, plus freedom, plus mental clarity, minus 5 hours a week of cleaning, minus occasional effort to meet someone. That's massively positive. The difference is huge. Single life gives you better quality of life at lower total cost. It's not even close. And this assumes an average relationship. If the relationship is really bad, high conflict, no sex, constant drama, the gap gets even bigger. Guys doing this math are reaching an obvious conclusion. Being single beats being partnered under current terms. The relationship costs way more than the benefits, and here's what makes this especially brutal. It gets worse over time. Early in a relationship, the costs are manageable. You're both being nice. She's accommodating. Conflict is rare. Sex is frequent. You're getting benefits that seem worth the cost, but over time, costs go up while benefits go down. This is the sneaky part, year 1 to 2. The relationship costs maybe 5 to 10 hours a week. Benefits are high. Net positive experience. The math works. You're happy to pay the price. Year 3 to 5. The relationship cost increases to 10 to 15 hours a week. Benefits start dropping. Sex becomes less frequent. She becomes less accommodating, but you're invested now. You tell yourself it's normal. The math is turning negative, but you don't notice because the change is slow. Years 6 to 10. The relationship costs 15 to 25 hours a week. Benefits have dropped significantly. Sex is rare. Emotional support is gone. Conflict is constant, but you're deeply invested. Married, maybe kids. Walking away would be a disaster financially. So you stick it out while quality of life drops. The way it builds up is what destroys guys. They pay a small price at first, see positive returns, and commit. Then the price goes up while returns go down, but they're too invested to leave. They end up spending decades operating at enormous loss because leaving seems harder than staying. Guys over 40 who've been through this, who've paid this price for years and finally got out, they're never making that mistake again. They've learned that relationship costs build up while benefits drop off, and they're refusing to get into that situation again. And let me break down the freedom cost specifically because this is often the biggest hidden price. As a single guy, your freedom is complete. Financial freedom. Your money is yours. You decide how to spend it, save it, invest it. No discussion, no justification, no permission needed. Want to buy something? Buy it. Want to invest somewhere? Invest. Your money, your choice. Time freedom. Your time is yours. Want to work late on a project? Work late. Want to spend all weekend on a hobby? Do it. Want to spend the evening reading quietly? Perfect. No requirement to spend time in certain ways. No guilt about choosing to be alone. Decision freedom. Life choices are yours to make. Want to move to a new city? Move. Want to change careers? Change. Want to take a risk? Take it. No discussion required. No compromise needed. No convincing someone else. In a relationship, all of this freedom gets reduced or eliminated. Financial. Joint money or financial transparency requirements mean you can't spend freely. Big purchases need discussion. Investment choices get questioned. Your income serves the household, not just you. Time. Your time must go to relationship maintenance, date nights, quality time, shared activities, relationship talks. Time you'd spend on personal stuff gets diverted to partnership demands. Solo time becomes a source of conflict or guilt. Decision. Big life choices need joint agreement. Can't move without her agreement. Can't change careers without thinking about impact on the household. Can't take risks that affect partnership stability. Every major choice requires discussion and compromise. The freedom cost is enormous, and most guys don't measure it because freedom loss happens slowly. You don't notice how limited you've become until you're single again and rediscover complete freedom to run your own life. Guys who've experienced getting that freedom back, who felt the relief of making choices without discussion, spending money without justification, using time without guilt, they're incredibly resistant to giving up that freedom again. The freedom cost alone makes relationships a bad deal for many guys. One of the most expensive parts of relationship cost is the emotional labor imbalance, where you provide constant emotional work for her while getting none in return. Emotional labor includes mood management, watching her emotional state, adjusting your behavior to fit her moods, avoiding topics or actions that might upset her, giving reassurance when she's anxious, giving validation when she's insecure, conflict prevention, constantly looking for potential triggers, phrasing things carefully to avoid misunderstanding, timing conversations to match her good moment, managing your own emotions to avoid burdening her, walking on eggshells to prevent fights. This is exhausting and it goes one direction. You provide this emotional labor constantly. What do you get? When you're stressed, you're expected to handle it yourself. When you're anxious, you're supposed to deal with it privately. When you have problems, you're supposed to solve them without burdening her. The emotional labor imbalance means you're working as therapist, emotional manager, and constant reassurance giver while getting nothing back. You're paying massive emotional labor cost and getting zero emotional labor benefit. Guys who've left relationships and discovered they can manage their own emotions more easily without also managing someone else's emotions, they're never going back to that one-sided setup. So when does a guy reach the breaking point? When does he calculate that relationship cost, beats benefits, and decide to opt out? It typically happens when one of these things occurs. Total cost beats total benefit. He does honest accounting, adds up all costs, emotional labor, mental load, communication time, conflict, freedom loss, opportunity cost. He compares to benefits actually getting: inconsistent intimacy, neutral domestic labor, minimal emotional support, realizes he's operating at massive loss, decides to stop paying. Peace comparison shows the gap. He experiences a period of peace. Business trip, weekend alone, separation, and compares it to normal life with partner. Realizes he's happier, calmer, more productive, more energized when alone. Recognizes that the relationship is net subtraction from quality of life, not addition. Chooses peace permanently, benefit withdrawal without cost reduction. She withdraws main benefit. Sex becomes rare. Emotional connection disappears. Respect evaporates, but still demands he pay full relation. He's paying everything, getting nothing. The exploitation becomes undeniable. He exits. Once a guy reaches any of these breaking points, he's done. Not angry, not emotional, just done. The math doesn't work. The investment doesn't produce return. The cost isn't justified by benefits, so he stops paying. And critically, once he experiences life without relationship cost, once he lives the peace, freedom, and simplicity of single life, he's incredibly resistant to ever paying that cost again, because he now knows from direct experience that single life gives higher quality of life at lower total cost. This pattern especially affects guys over 40 for specific reasons. Experience. They've been in relationships, they know what it costs, they know what it provides, they can calculate accurately because they have data. Younger guys are working on hope, older guys are working on evidence. Reduced biological drive, testosterone declines. The biological push to pursue women weakens. They can think clearly without hormones messing with decision making. The cost benefit becomes visible without biology distorting it. Financial stability. They can afford single life comfortably. They're not seeking a partner for financial reasons. They have resources to live well independently. Financial pressure to partners gone. Limited runway. They recognize they have maybe 30 to 40 years left. They're not willing to spend that limited time operating at loss. Quality matters more than quantity at this life stage. They choose peace over partnership if partnership costs peace. All these things come together to make guys over 40 especially likely to calculate relationship cost honestly and refuse to pay it. They have experience, clarity, resources, and wisdom to recognize that modern relationships are terrible deals for men. There's only one solution that brings guys back. Relationship cost must justify benefits received. The equation must balance. This requires benefit enhancement. Women must provide benefits that justify costs, consistent intimacy, genuine emotional support, real partnership, actual value beyond just her presence, cost reduction. Modern relationships must reduce costs to reasonable levels, less emotional labor demanded, less conflict manufactured, more freedom preserved, honest accounting. Both parties acknowledge costs and benefits openly. No pretending costs don't exist. No assuming benefits justify any cost. Honest discussion of whether the equation balances, but most women won't reduce relationship cost voluntarily. Most won't enhance benefits significantly. Most won't engage honest accounting. So most guys keep opting out because math keeps failing. Let me tell you why I made this video and why I'm willing to measure what's supposed to stay unmeasured. Because I paid relationship costs for years without checking whether it was justified. I operated at massive loss while convincing myself it was normal. And when I finally did the honest accounting, the numbers were devastating. I've been bleeding quality of life for over a decade, and I've talked to hundreds of guys through similar realizations. Guys who thought relationship problems were their fault until they calculated the costs they were paying versus benefits they were getting. Guys who discovered they were operating at enormous loss while being told they weren't doing enough. The relationship cost is real. The costs can be measured, the benefits can be measured. And when you do honest accounting, modern relationships are terrible investments for most guys. So if this hit home, if you've been paying relationship costs without calculating returns, do the math. Add up the actual costs. Measure the actual benefits. Be brutally honest about whether the equation balances. And if it doesn't, make the economically rational choice. Drop a comment about your relationship cost calculation. What are you paying? What are you getting? Does the math work? Share. So other guys can learn from your accounting. Subscribe for more truth about relationship economics that nobody else will state this honestly, because this channel will never tell you to keep paying costs that beat benefits. We'll never tell you that calculating returns on investment is unromantic. We'll never frame economically rational opt-out as male failure. The relationship cost is too high. The benefits are too low. The math doesn't work. And refusing to pay isn't failure. It's financial literacy applied to relationships.